As any business owner will know, running a business is never easy. Inevitably, something will always go wrong, and sometimes stuff really hits the fan, causing a big chink in the armor. And I don't know about you, but one thing I've noticed as a business owner is it seems like every time you get comfortable and get settled in, something goes wrong. It's like you're riding that bike down the road, everything's smooth, and then bam, you hit a pothole and that ride changes. Lately, you've been dealing with some events from what we all face as farmers, weather. Can you talk a little bit about what you faced recently and how this has been such a huge challenge for you?
Sure. Sorry, Diego, you're breaking up a bit. Do you want me to move in the room that I'm in?
Nope, as long as you hear the gist of the question, we're good.
Yep,
Because
sweet.
'cause you're not breaking up.
Okay, sweet. And then you want me to start with the recent storm?
Yeah, take them one at a time and give me a chance to respond, and then
Yep, sure.
we can
Yep.
move on to other stuff.
So growing up, Diego, I'm dad taught me how to read the weather. I'm a surfer, and so the weather's just as important for surfers as farmers. New Zealand, we've got the saying 4 seasons in one day. And so I'm tracking the weather all the time because we're so exposed. We're on a peninsula sticking out into the ocean, the most western part of New Zealand. It's called the Roaring Forties. We're at 39 longitude, but it's massive winds. I'm always looking for the subtropical storms coming down and then the polar southerly winds coming from Antarctica. The rain's a challenge, but the massive winds are just so destructive. So a couple of Tuesdays ago, it would have been about middle of February, so late summer, we had the ocean's warm, and so the cyclones travel south further. It's the cold water that dissipates them. They had a huge warning out for a record cyclone, and it turned out to be the worst one in 30 years. It's called Cyclone Gabrielle, so you can Google it and see the destruction on the east coast of New Zealand. We're the west coast. We didn't get the rain, but we got the wind. And so we saw it coming and we just hunkered down. We got prepared. We lifted all our tarps. We irrigated heavy before it. We knew power's going to be out. If the wind gets up, trees go through the power lines. And so we just got ready for it. And yeah, so we put insect nets over crops that don't even need insect nets. We spent most of the day hunkering down. I got harvest finished and delivered. And then we just got ready to go into a state of emergency. The wind picked up overnight. It was strong, but at 6:20 a.m., it hit 130 kilometers. So I need to convert that to miles, but I think it's somewhere around 75 miles. And it was strong and constant and from the south.
Yeah, 130 kilometers per hour, 80-mile-per-hour winds. When that starts coming, obviously, the first thing people are gonna think of is, "Okay, we have to be safe." You have a family, and that's paramount. Structures, the business, everything like that, I think is an afterthought in the hierarchy of needs of us as humans. Okay, can we get through this as a family, as an individual, okay, and not get hurt? And then it's, all right, what can we do to minimize damage to the farm? Now, some of this prevention was done long ago when for your location, you source equipment that can withstand these types of winds, or at least stronger winds, maybe not these exact winds. And some of it is done on the fly. So when you start seeing this manifest itself, what's running through your head in terms of how is the farm going to hold up?
I think that people first, it's keeping our family safe. I've got teenage girls. I've got an employee and a fund trainee living on farm. So yeah, we just spend the time getting ready to know that the power's going to be out, and we call it hunkering down. We just spend the whole day getting ready, making sure nothing can blow off the farm with our greenhouses. If anything blows away, it's pretty, can pretty much guarantee it's going to blow through your greenhouse. Then you're going to lose your plastic on the greenhouse. No amount of concrete weights can hold a tarp down once you hit 60 mile. We've learned that from experience. So we lifted all our tarps, folded all our tarps up. And this has only happened twice, but we also put our red pus hoops and insect nets over crops that we want to protect from the wind. Now, I'll come back to those. So we spent a lot of time putting nets up to cover. And then we've talked in past episodes about our green 70% shade net that we have lay on the ground for emerging direct seeded crops. I've learned from experience too, you need to lift those up, because what the wind does is it makes them rub at ground level and it serrates the top of the bed. So we take all our shade nets off. Anything that could possibly move, even if it's ridiculously heavy, we are securing, tying down, making sure that stuff just can't blow away. And that's a good half a day for me and David, my employee, and just getting ready. We don't open the chiller when the power's off. We just keep it shut. I make sure my sheep are somewhere safe, out of the wind. I had them grazing in a sheltered paddock under silver pasture during that. And we just make sure I filled the bubbler up with potable water. We cook food ahead of time, just make sure that we can keep safe, got food and water, and we've done the best we can to secure the farm as the event gets really nasty.
Growing up there, you've probably seen a lot of winds in the past. Is this something you feel comfortable with? Because what I'm trying to get a sense of is there's probably a lot of you're hustling, right? Let's get everybody safe. Let's get the sheep safe. Let's protect the crops. But in the back of your head, is there any inkling of, man, this could be disaster for the farm? We could get wiped out. Or have you just seen this to know it's going to be bad, but we'll be okay? Like, how are you thinking this will affect the crops in the farm infrastructure?
In terms of infrastructure, the main thing is that we've got two houses, that we still have a roof on the house. Those are our big infrastructures, the costly ones. We've been through, this was one of the worst ones, but we've been through this so many times, including massive rain events. We'll come back to that. I've gotten used to it or comfortable with that. It used to be stressful. It is what it is these days, but we just do the work. Like you said, do the work and get ready for it. And then it is what it is. It's just not worth stressing out and then taking that out on the family or other people around me. It is what it is. We can bounce back. I'd like to talk a bit more about that soon, but you just can only do what you can do. And then that's it. You just got to ride it out and wait till the other side, and there's going to be damage. It's a different content, but we don't have crop insurance. It's just insane. The cost, all insurances are just going nuts because of all the disasters we're having, like earthquakes and floods and winds. But we just take the hit and ride it out and bounce back with quick crops.
So that storm comes through. How did everything end up holding up?
The one thing, and I learned a bit again on this one, the one thing I didn't do was to lift my 70% shade nets that were covering the direct seeded crops. And that kind of just rubbed and grated the surface of the soil. But these are pre-emerging crops. So the following day when the wind backed off, I lifted those and irrigated the insect nets on the red path hoops. And same, if it was going to be this windy again, I would take them down first. The hoops, which are, I don't know, aluminium, light stainless steel, they were snapping off at ground level. So that's a piece of steel in the ground, snapping at the ground level just with insect net on it. So for those that are using plastic on the insect nets, we lost in another wind event 5 years ago in July, that's our dead of winter, we lost 35 beds with the hoops. Like same thing, 120 kilometre easterly, which lands on us. We had 35 beds of plastic go in 2 minutes. And that was just off the farm. So if we have plastic up, we'll switch to insect nets. And then if it's really nasty, I think what I learned from this storm was take the insect nets off. These hoops are strong. We've had them 8 years, and that they were snapping at ground level and just pulling out the ground. And we've got them anchored and fixed. Like I've got a big screw, or it's like a dog tether at the end of each net. So I only had the hoop snap twice. That just shows you the intensity. High wind design, what do you call them? High tunnels. They have roll up sides and sliding doors. I get like a strop from my roof racks on the truck, and I strop the roll up sides down and the door down. And so this wind, we're in the southern hemisphere. This wind is from the southeast, which is, and what's the word? It's a steady wind. It's with extra big gusts on top of that. What I didn't do this time with our 90 square meter greenhouse was crack open the roll up side on the leeward side of the wind. And so we've ridden through wind similar to this many times with the greenhouse, but this one, the sliding door has 3 panels on it. The seal on the panels weren't tight, and at 6:20 a.m., the panel on the sliding door blew out, went straight up through the roof, and that then created a vortex, I don't know if that's the right word, for the wind to get in, and then within seconds we'd lost the roof off the greenhouse, and it's flapping around, making an insane noise. So I'm straight out of bed, I put a knife on a pole and just went and cut the plastic. So we're peak season. I've got low and lean trained tomatoes, cherries and beef right up to the top wires. It was tough. It's a big investment. That's our tomato season, shortened now by 8 weeks. And it's not the cost of the plastic, it's the time of reskinning it. Yeah, I learned a lesson there. Check the seal on the sliding doors. Maybe I should have parked my truck in front of it. And if you have a design that allows you to open the leeward side, that definitely takes the pressure off the greenhouse.
It's just amazing what farmers have to deal with versus somebody like me. I make stuff. And obviously, there's challenges I have to deal with that are beyond my control. Materials go out of stock, material prices go up. Companies that are third party manufacturers, they have issues that shut down. But as a farmer, you're dealing with nature and all the things that come with it: extreme heat, extreme drought, insects, disease, and it's constant pressure. How do you have resilience to just take this in stride?
I think it's taken time, but I think it comes to mindset. I'll be honest. In the past, I used to do the work prior a storm, and then I just hit the beers. I just block it out, sleep like a baby, and deal with it the next day. These days, because we had another storm in only a month before this one as well, another cyclone. These days, I just do the work and just keep positive. You've got to keep positive with your team around you, your family. Last thing your kids want to see is you freaking out. And we just get ready for it. And it is what it is. We've gotten really good at bouncing back fast. And so to add into this, the 2 things that matter the most is we're safe, and then we have to keep our supply chain going. We can't have our fridges empty and not supply our retail or restaurant space. And so I know resilience builds innovation. I guess that's a weird human thing, but every event we've had like this, we've managed to keep our fridges full and to just switch to bounce back. Some of our tall crops got burnt. The tomatoes are okay. We're going to lose 6 weeks of harvest, but the tail end season. Cucumbers, they're indoors, they're fine. Root veg, that's all fine. It's interesting, every time this happens, whether it's half a meter of rain or 80-mile wind, young successions, like just emerged, germinated, or 1 or 2 inches high, they're pretty resilient at size. And so rolling forward from this event, we had a 6-day gap with our baby Mizuna or mustard, which is a core field crop for us. And that was it. So the storm peaked for about 2 hours for us early morning. By lunchtime, the wind had backed off enough. I was already direct seeding Mizuna, again, new successions outside, watering the other successions that are younger, putting new covers on them. And we saw the storm coming. We'd already doubled up on microgreens, pea shoots. We had root veg harvested ahead of time in the chiller. So we see it coming and we plan for it to keep our fridges full.
Yeah, in a world that doesn't have crop insurance like big ag, it's diversity, which is your crop insurance. Because if you're a big ag, producer. In the US, it's corn and soy. You have one shot every year to make that one planting, and it either works or it doesn't. And if nature hits, you're SOL. You better have the insurance. Where with a market farmer, I think this emphasizes why this model has this inherent built-in resiliency and how it's important. You have multiple levels of diversity. One, you're multiple crops. So you can't get the income death blow that ever takes you out for a season. You might have a gap in income. One crop's taken out until the next succession comes on. So you have this diversity of crops that can all probably handle different types of weather to different degrees within reason. And then within each crop, you most likely have successions outside of maybe something like tomatoes. But field crops like lettuce, you could have a lettuce crop in the field ready to harvest and it gets destroyed in a storm. You might have an earlier succession that just got transplanted or direct seeded that's unaffected. You might have transplants in the nursery that's unaffected. So it's just that importance of stacking crops, diversity that builds the resiliency into the model. So for people who think, oh yeah, like tomatoes are the main cash crop or whatever, this is the risk inherently of going with one crop, one rotation. You have one shot. If something goes wrong, it's over. But with this diversified model, you inherently have multiple bites at the apple in one freak storm can't take you out. Now, a sustained drought, a sustained heat wave, a sustained cold wave can obviously really affect things. That's a lot harder to protect yourself from. But these unique weather events, rainstorms, hurricanes, cyclones, fires, hail, that is protected, or your farm is protected a little bit by that diversity of crops and diversity of successions within those crops that you do have.
I think that's great. Yeah, I'm totally with you there. I think that whole optionality thing too, and that's something we really lean on really hard. And communication as well. The day before the storm, I rang all my restaurants and I said, look, we're not going to have Maluna all week. I'm harvesting everything we've got right now. And they know it's good for 10 days. So they ordered basically the next 3 deliveries ahead. So I got it all out the field, and the communication is key. I can't just ring them the day after the storm and go, oh, dude, there's a storm and we got smoked. They're going to go elsewhere. So I basically told them what was on offer, what was happening, and they just ordered for the next 3 deliveries. And I said, I'll be able to give you an ETA on when our next successions are on. So it worked out. We had 6 days without mustard, baby Mizuno. I'm intrigued that the baby stuff can handle these weather events. It's when things are perfect and ready to harvest that they're more susceptible. And so a couple of things here I'd like to throw out there is you better to harvest it and have it in your chiller than to leave it in the field for it to get torched. And then another conversation, but looking on the other side of it, I'm realizing over the years that the part of the business that is essential that I run is the correlation between our fridge space and what we harvest from the field. And I'm really big that if your sales drop for a reason, like we just had a really hot and cold summer in terms of sales. Summer's not our peak sales time. It's good, but as soon as summer's over, so we're now first day of fall or autumn, our retail has really lifted in the last 3 weeks. And I'm delivering this week, three days of the week, just because our fridges are hammered. So where I'm heading here is, if you've got surplus, for us, you're better to leave it in the field. If you harvest it, added value it by washing, packaging and delivering it for it not to sell, that's a huge cost. You've got all of that added value cost that then affects your bottom line. And so I'm seeing a real strong relationship between our fridges, and because I'm the delivery guy and I stock and rotate everything, as soon as I see the images of my fridges or I'm on delivery, I know what the next 3-4 days is going to look like on the farm. I can read the pattern and I can see how can we increase our volumes on, say, salad, and that might just be doubling up on micros, pea shoots, or drilling more Mizuna. The good thing about this storm is that it happened in summer when like Mizuna's it's starting to slow down, but it's about 20 days, so we can bounce back super quick. The storm 5 years ago, exactly the same thing, but it was in July, dead of winter. At that time of the year for us, it takes 7.5 weeks to grow a lettuce transplant and 7.5 weeks to get it, to cut off it. And it's like forever. Whereas we can do baby mustard direct seeded indoors in about 32 days in the dead of winter. So I think the fast crops as part of your business model are your get out of jail card.
Yeah, so hearing that, I'm thinking, oh, a storm's coming or a weather I'll say a weather event. A weather event is coming that you can identify. You gotta make a quick decision. I can leave it in the field, potentially risk it getting destroyed, and not be able to sell that product and be out income for the gap that's now going to exist until that product that's damaged can be replaced, until the next succession comes online. Or I can decide to harvest it, because if I harvest it, it's protected in the fridge. It's not getting damaged. But I don't wanna just harvest it to harvest it. I need to know that if I'm gonna harvest it, that I can sell it. So if it's storms coming, I need to harvest twice as much salad mix as I normally would to protect it from the storm. Can I move twice as much salad mix right now? If not, harvest the normal amount so you don't incur that additional labor on all that extra that you tried to save from the storm. But in trying to save it, you paid a bunch of money for it, and it ended up costing you in the end. You should have just left it in the field and let it become compost.
Or you could think of it as a cover crop. If it's photosynthesizing, it's feeding your soil.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of this makes me think of having kids. This is exactly what having kids is, or for people that don't have kids, maybe have a pet. Having kids is a great time, but inevitably something is going to happen. Somebody falls and get injured. Somebody has a potty accident. Somebody's sick. Some issue comes up at school or with friends. But as a parent, you learn to just adapt. It's what could happen next. You're not thrown off by every little thing that happens. Somebody dropped this thing. Somebody left this on the counter overnight and it went bad. You just roll with it because at least as
Yeah.
me, as a longtime parent with 3 kids, like, I'm accustomed to just stuff happening. If I got riled up about every time one of these little things happen, I'd never be able to relax. And the same thing with a pet. Pets are amazing. Sometimes they're gonna have accidents inside. Sometimes they're gonna tear something up. Sometimes they're gonna have their own issues with illness. But you value what it is and you become accustomed to just, this is just part of it. And hearing you talk, I think this is what not just farmers, but what owning a business is. Initially, when you first get into it, these events are gonna have a 10 out of 10 magnitude on your life and mental well-being. I just started farming. Oh my god, this hailstorm came. This is the worst thing ever. 5 years later, 15 hailstorms later, hailstorm's coming. Let's prepare. Stuff will get damaged. We'll be okay. We've been okay in the past. And it's just like kids. Newborn baby barfs all over everything. Oh my god, this is a disaster. On your 3rd kid, when that next baby barfs, whatever. That's probably the best thing that happened that day. So I think that's this mindset. Don't let it get to you. Don't let it destroy you. And if these things do bother you and they drain on you, then you're probably not in the right business, meaning owning a business, whether it's a farm or otherwise, because you're never going to have this smooth sailing, calm ocean all the time. So you have to know going in that there's going to be these road bumps. And for anybody out there that feels like, hey, all this bad stuff's happening to me this year on my farm in my location, here you are across the world. Things can look perfect on Instagram, but there's always chaos behind that picture on Instagram.
For sure. Diego, can I quickly just do a toilet stop? Thanks, Winter.
Okay, can you just I need you to do a transition here so I can ask the next question. Can you just say something like, "You're absolutely right. Farming has its ups and downs, but over time, you learn to just roll with it." Something like that.
Yep, sure. Yeah, you're right, Diego. Taking the hits is part of it. We've got a small crew of people that are huge support to us. My neighbor, he texted me 3 days before the storm. He said, "Cyclone's coming. If you need anything, just holler." There's there's some people around that are just magic. They understand, they get it, that you're running a business, things are going to get nasty. These people are really key. I was going to say we had 4 people that reached out to us and like, if you need anything, this is a huge part of when I consult to people starting up to farming us and where their support is. And yeah, my take is if you can't see the support, don't be that farmer curmudgeon like Joel Salatin says and think you can go out and do this solo by yourself. When events come like this, it's your people that get you through.
Exactly, it's relationships and they're everything, and you've dealt with some farms and consulted with some farms, assisted some farms in the past who have dealt with tragedy on their own, and they've overcame it with magnificent results. Can you talk about some of those stories of people that have just faced bad scenarios and came out the other end looking great?
Sure. So I was just in Australia, middle of January. That's our peak summer. Some growers that I consulted to early on that become good friends. They've got a new business called Five Tails Farm, and they're an hour and a half south of Melbourne in Victoria, Australia. They have, so they started, so it's their peak season. They started about 4 months earlier on brand new land. And we're having some, weather's getting weird. That's the new normal. So they set up on it's a 5 acre title that nobody had ever farmed successfully. And I'm pretty sure the reason is the soil, the magnesium is at 40. So if you punch the soil, you're going to have your arm in a cast. You're going to break your fist. And it's Mikey and his partner, Kes and Jess. There's 3 of them in this business. And they used to run, prior to this, a very successful farm called Mossy Willow Farm, 15 minutes up the road. And they were crushing it. So their new lease, they're in the same proximity. They've got all these relationships with restaurants. They used to have a thriving farmers market they attended. And their new lease, they set up, they put in concrete at the wash and pack that was already there. They put up a new greenhouse. They brought in a lot of compost. They brought some new tools. And then they had a super cold, wet spring. And on that soil, the water table just lifts. You know, they used to grow a full range of stuff, just be crushing it at the farmer's market. Everything just failed. Crops were just, and they were just like, what have we done? And moving forward, it's still cold and wet. It was pretty much cold and wet up till Christmas. Usually they're into the 30s Celsius by then. And they'd come and train with us heading into our last winter. And they were really keen to dial in fast crops, the salad model, wash and packs appropriately, and to head into the retail space and or supermarket stacked onto their current enterprise. And yeah, moving forward, and they were really struggling. Turnover was really down. Crop variety was really down. And they just applied the model which Curtis formed, developed so well. Again, I'd like to mention his 2016 Farm Small, Farm Smart, the Urban Farmer series. There's so much good content in there. Yeah. So they just leant on the salad model. They're doing pea shoots in the field. We're going to do a podcast about that, just like we are. The sun, 20 kgs each succession. Set up microgreens. They're doing a lot of transplanted lettuce into fabric with insect net on top. And there's a tractor there that basically they've abandoned any kind of bed prep because it's impossible. They're just composting on top and they've just smashed out the salad model. Their income went from not a lot early spring, which is a time when you have incurring a lot of cost under the pressure financially. and with the climate, and they just doubled up and doubled up on the salad model. Microgreens, pea shoots in the field, cut and come again lettuce, and direct seeded Mizuna. We got them using 70% shade over the Mizuna. They had a 30% increase there immediately. And prior to me going over midsummer, I'll say, which is middle of Jan, their turnover lifted. This is Australian dollars to 6,500, 8,500. And the week I was there, they hit 10,000, pretty much salad. They've got some cucumbers. They're pretty bonsai because of the soil. They've got some tommies, zucchinis, but the core, some carrots, but the core of what they're producing is mixed salad. And they've been hitting 10K. We're now middle of January, February, March. We're 10 weeks on consistently each week. I'll come back to it. But the core of their sales is 50% wholesale, 25% retail, 25% restaurant.
What do you think were some of the big keys for them to get back at it?
They're amazing growers. I would jump in there and say that, and John Jevons says this, farming is skills intensive. It's all the details. So honing in on the details and the optionality thing again, the salad mix, rather than doing head lettuce or just straight lettuce, they're combining, similar to us, pea shoots from the field, radish micros, Mizuna, lettuce. Straight away, the restaurant clientele, my take is you add micros into your field salad, it lifts the game. We won awards for both our salads. So suddenly they're, because they hadn't grown microgreens in the past, suddenly the restaurants are like, that salad is on, we want more. And they also started supplying wholesalers, and I was intrigued with this. Wholesalers were all over it too. And I think leaning on fast crops, embedding the optionality, embracing their long-term relationships with their market streams. So I'm pretty sure that they're not at the farmer's market. They pretty much replaced that with wholesale, and having wholesalers that'll come in and just take crates and crates of cucumbers, sell it in bulk. And yeah, I think the fast crops, optionality in relationships, despite, I'm going to say, their toughest growing season on new ground, it was amazing to see. And so on the Tuesday, they harvested 150 kilograms. I think that's just under 500 pounds. You might be able to help me there, Diego. And we're running an event with 20 other growers. We set up a long table, 3 sets of scales, and we bagged 150 kilograms of salad in about 25 minutes. It was like a salad party. It was just epic to see the lift off that they were achieving. That was their first week of hitting 10K. I could just see in their faces just how good a feeling that was coming out of probably their toughest time in farming ever, and seeing the lift off that they had, and that they were going to be able to farm their way out of a pretty tough scenario.
One thing I really like that you talked about earlier was when you knew that this storm was coming, you reached out to your big customers and let them know what to expect. I think that's really important. You definitely want to keep customers in the loop, because at the end of the day, hey, they're the ones paying the bills. So you don't want them to be caught off guard. And most people would appreciate communication early. If it's bad news, most people would appreciate bad news to come earlier than later, and so they can prepare on their own and they're not caught off guard, especially when it's some sort of force majeure event like this. Let's say that some unforecasted damage occurred on your farm and a crop was left just totally wiped out. Let's say tomatoes or something like that. What would you do? How would you handle that with your customers who are buying that product? What do you think that conversation would look like?
I'm not sure what my first thoughts on that, Diego. I would probably lean on some other local growers that I've worked with for years and see. I've got some friends that farm 40 minutes north of us. They're on a better soil. They get less rain and it gets warmer earlier and later. I would, if that's the right word, aggregate friends' production through our channels. And I did this one season. So my friend's farm, they can grow carrots 6 weeks earlier and 6 weeks later, pretty much all year round. I took my team out to their farm, harvested their surplus carrots, paid them their price, and then put them through our restaurant chain and just made the margin on it just to keep that supply going to our restaurant. And when I delivered the carrots to Social Kitchen, the business owner said to me, "Did you go and pick these from another farm to keep our supply chain going?" And I was like, "Yep." And they were just like, they were blown out. Now moving forward, this is the relation. If you can't do relationships, don't do business. You just go work for someone, clock out at 5. Tanya and I, after 25 years, we're getting married tomorrow, and Social Kitchen are doing all the catering for us. They don't actually do weddings, but they've told us 2 years ago, "We'd love to do it for you. We're going to make it super special. It's all our food," and they're doing it all for us. And we're doing it on contra. So we've supplied the food for their time and labor. We're going to supply them produce into their restaurant for whatever, 2-3 weeks. And the best restaurant in town now cooking for us for our family event. That just means the world to me. And if we didn't look after them, that ain't going to be happening. And so I think and also the morning of the storm, when it really hit hard, Social Kitchen were the first ones to text us to see if we were okay. That's one of our bigger restaurants.
Yeah, I think that's another amazing thing about farming. You in general, the community, both amongst other farmers, as you talked about with the farm in Australia, that you have a relationship with neighbors who reached out to help you, with customers who reached out to check on you. And you're right. Relationships are so paramount in farming and really any business out there. And I think when you start to look at customers as partners versus transactions, that's when you have a different view on the business. Your local shop that does whatever, a local brewery that sees the same customers coming all the time, they have customers. Walmart has transactions. You're faceless to them. And it, in a world where there's so much competing attention and there's so many choices for where people can go for products, a lot of times when all else is equal, customers choose businesses that they support, that they identify with, that they share values with, that they just like. And if you don't cultivate that relationship and maintain those relationships, what's going to make your business stand out if you have a relatively similar product to somebody else? So I love that you emphasize how important these relationships are.
Yeah, it's the core of our business. At Roebuck Club's not just Jodi Roebuck. We've got a team and a lot of people that back us, and we back them too. And when they reach out, there's one thing I'll never tell them, and it's a cop out in my terms, sorry, I'm busy. We just make it happen. They need something, they're only asking because they're in that whatever, having a tough time. And that's when you need to be there for your people. That's when you find out. I think when you can support others when times are tough, we all become better and stronger for it. And the humans, funny bunch, we need a crisis before we're going to seek innovation.